By golly, it's amazing. It sounds like something you'd hear on the radio.
Presenting the transcription feature.
The Lucky Strike program starring Jack Benny with Mary Livingston, Phil Harris, Rochester, Dennis Day, and yours truly, Don Wilson.
It's 8:30 New York time. Time to wake up America and stump the expert.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Johnny Dollar.
Kraft presents The Great Gildersleeve.
And now meet Dick Calmer as Boston Blackie.
It's the Phil Harris Alice Faye Show, presented transcribed by the makers of Rexall Drug Products.
And now it's time to meet the men from the ministry.
The Armed Forces Radio and Television Service presents the Bob Hope Show with Les Brown and his band of renown. And yours truly, Bill Goodwin. And now here he is, Bob Hope.
Greetings, I'm Kevin Lauderdale. Let's start off with another episode of Information Please. Are you up on the wives of Henry VIII, children in literature, Shakespeare and soups? From May 30th, 1941. Information Please. Guests Jan Struther and Cornelia Otis Skinner.
It's 8:30.
It's 8:30 New York time. Time to wake up America and stump the experts. Every week at this time, Lucky Strike gives you a chance to throw questions at a quartet of know-it-alls. For every question we use, Lucky Strike pays out $10 plus a copy of the new Information Please quiz book. If your question stumps us, you get $25 more, plus a 24-volume set of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Send your questions to Information Please, 480 Lexington Avenue, New York City. If our editorial staff edits your questions a bit, don't fret over it. In case of similarity, we'll have to be sole judge of who shall be paid, and all questions become the property of Information Please. And now light up a Lucky Strike as I present our master of ceremonies, the literary critic of the New Yorker magazine, Clifton Fadiman. Mr. Fadiman.
Ladies and gentlemen, as always, Information Please is a completely spontaneous and unrehearsed program. And our experts this evening consist of that doughty duo, the sports expert John Kieran and the New York Post's conning tower man, Franklin P. Adams, together with two charming guests, Jan Struther, author of Mrs. Miniver. Miss Struther has been with us before, as you may remember, and Cornelia Otis Skinner, famous both as writer and actress, who has just starred on tour in Somerset Maugham's Theatre, which is scheduled to arrive in New York in October. Now remember, for each question that's missed, Lucky Strike rings up $25. And that's paid out to the sender, plus 24 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica. We're off, but before we really get going, Mr. Kieran and Mr. Adams, I would like you to give me your word of honor as gentlemen that you will not act this evening like gentlemen. That you will not be chivalrous toward either of these fair ladies.
I can't do that all of a sudden.
Well, now I'll give you about 30 seconds to rehearse it. We have to play completely fair and square. If you know anything, say so. And don't give Miss Skinner and Miss Struther any advantages which they do not possess by nature, which is plenty. The first question comes from Mrs. T.S. Gray of Dodge City, Texas. Get 2 out of 3 if you can. Answer each of these questions from famous poems by quoting the succeeding lines in which the answers are given. I'll give you the question. You give me the answer. The first question is, who has seen the wind? Miss Skinner.
Neither you nor I.
Yes, what's it from, Miss Skinner?
I don't know.
You don't have to.
No.
That's very good.
Well, when something is passing by, I know that.
Yes, the last part sounds a little bit like Mr. Adams in his best. It is from Christina Rossetti's poem, Who Has Seen the Wind? How many of the rest of us knew that? Did you know it, Mr. Kieran, Struther, Mr. Adams?
If I had, I wouldn't say so.
Well, I can see how you're going to act all evening, Mr. Adams. Thank you, Miss Skinner. That's very good. Now, how about the next question? What does little birdie say in her nest at peep of day? What does she say, Mr. Adams? You're stepping out of your role, Mr. Adams.
Wait until I'm a little stronger, or words to that effect.
Yes, I don't
Then I'll fly away.
Yes, that's a rough and ready transcript. Miss Struther?
Well, that didn't scan so good, but I think he said, let me grow a little stronger.
Yes.
Till my wings are
a
Let
little
me
longer.
grow a
or
little
something.
longer
Yeah.
till my wings are something stronger.
That's right. That's one of the answers. Let me fly, says little birdie, mother, let me fly away is another answer. And it comes from what poem, Mr. Adams?
I think it was written by Tennyson.
Yes, In an Off Moment. And what's the poem called?
What does little birdie say?
Yes, you never would have suspected. How about this question? Is it weakness of intellect, birdie? We have a lot of birdies tonight. Is it weakness of intellect, birdie, I cried? Miss Skinner.
Or a rather tough worm in your little inside.
Yes, that's how the question goes on. What's the answer?
Well, he just replied Titwillow.
Yes. No, he didn't. He replied more than that. Mr. Adams.
Oh, Willow, Titwillow.
That's right. Oh, Willow, Titwillow, Titwillow.
Titwillow.
Yes, we're very exact in this program,
Oh, I'm
Miss Skinner. That's doing very well. Thank you very much. Now, how about this one from J.A. Cope of Ithaca, New York? Get all on this. This is a question about the wives of Henry VIII. We will dwell on them for just a moment or two. Which of Henry VIII's wives was the mother of the following? Which of them was the mother of Elizabeth? Queen Elizabeth. Miss Skinner.
Anne Boleyn.
Anne Boleyn, yes. And I'm always glad to find out someone who knows how to pronounce Anne Boleyn, whom I always call her Anne Bullen. That's wrong, isn't it?
No, I think she's called that by experts, but most people know her as Anne Boleyn.
Oh, no, just by MCs. How about the mother of Mary? Which of the wives was the mother of Mary? Now we have only one hand raised. Miss Skinner.
Catherine of Aragon.
Catherine of Aragon, yes. And which of them was the mother of Edward VI? Any other hand but Miss Skinner? Miss Struther, you needn't be gallant. Miss Skinner?
Jane Seymour.
Yes, Jane Seymour. Perfect on Henry VIII's wives. Your specialty, is it?
Well, I think I should know that.
Irene Holland of Hamilton, Ontario sends this one in. Get 2 out of 3 if you can. Now, in the homes of what fictional characters might you be visiting if you found these unusual situations, if you found the following going on? Suppose you came in the door and saw a man throwing his boots at his wife as she was praying. In whose house would you be, Mr. Kieran?
In the house of Mr. Cruncher, Sr.
Yes.
He's in The Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens.
First name of Mr. Cruncher?
Jerry.
Jerry is right, yes. And he had this odd habit of throwing boots at his wife when she prayed. How about this situation? A father is introduced to his children by a professor of Greek. In whose house would that be? Father is introduced to his children by a professor of Greek. Caught you on that, have I? You haven't been to the movies lately, any of you. You've been out on tour, Miss Skinner. Miss Struther, you've been busy? Don't go to the movies?
Very often, I don't remember.
Have you
that
seen
one.
Mr. Bernard Shaw's Major Barbara lately?
No.
Remember that now? Well, in Major Barbara and the other children of Andrew Undershaft are living in their father's home together, and the father is not included in the household. And when he reappears, a Greek professor who's engaged to Barbara introduces them to each other. How about, that gives us one wrong, we have to get the next one right. In what home would you find the children being beaten before bedtime? Miss Skinner.
The old lady who lived in a shoe.
Yes, you needn't be so polite. We say woman on this program. The old woman who lived in a shoe. That's quite right. What are the lines which would...
She had so many children she didn't know what to do.
Yes?
She, wait a minute. She gave them some water without any bread. Oh, no, something without any bread.
Not
Whipped
water.
them all soundly into the bed.
Yes. What'd you give them without any bread, Miss Struther?
Butter without any bread.
Broth.
No,
Broth.
not butter. What a messy thing, Miss Struther. Butter without any bread. Broth, of course.
Broth.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Adams. Whip them all soundly and put them to bed. Well, you ladies and gentlemen are doing too well this evening. Let's see what you can do with this one. From Catherine Hanley of New Orleans. Can you recite, let's say, 4 lines of poetry in which theatrical terms are mentioned? Any theatrical term at all, mentioned in any way. 4 different lines of poetry. Mr. Kieran, start us off.
All the world's a stage. W. Shakespeare.
Yes, if you went on with that, by the way, what would you get?
Players.
You bet. And what other theatrical terms? Just keep going, Mr. Kieran, and you'll answer the whole question.
Parts. Acts.
Yes. Exits, entrances.
That's right.
Yes, the...
Get them all right in that one quotation?
All right in that one quotation, as Mr. Kieran points out. Miss Struther.
If all the world were ham and eggs.
I resent that.
That's very good. Very good. That gives us 2.
I don't know how it goes. Angels and earthly creatures.
Angels and earthly creatures. There is such a line. I don't know who wrote it. Angels, certainly a theatrical term. Wouldn't you say so, Miss Skinner?
But I couldn't give 4 lines.
No, I asked for 4 separate lines.
Oh.
Now, one more. Any theatrical term at all. Miss Struther?
Oh, wait a minute.
Miss Skinner?
Oh, for the wings of a dove.
Wings, yes, very good. Sure, that will do. Mr. Kieran?
I am thy father's ghost. The ghost walks in the theater.
Yeah, that's true. Though lots of other places, too. Miss Struther, did you have another one?
Oh, I was only going to say greenery, yallery, grosvenor, gallery, foot in the grave, young man.
Gallery is very good.
Show me the way to go home.
Oh, we're getting good. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Now, from Henry Thomas of Franklin, Pennsylvania, comes this question. Get 3 out of 4 to current events question. Each of the following took part in the recent sinking of the Bismarck. Give the correct naval classification of each. Sheffield. Sheffield was what? Mr. Kieran? I'm going to name 4.
Name the other.
All right.
Name the others.
I will. Here they are. The Sheffield, the Ark Royal, the Catalina, and Zulu. Now, they differ.
The Ark Royal is an airplane carrier.
That's correct. The Ark Royal is an aircraft carrier. That's quite right.
Catalina is a type of airplane.
That's quite right. That gives us 2. That leaves the Sheffield and the Zulu to
There's
be
probably
accounted
a
for.
cruiser and a destroyer.
Which one is which? Mr. Kieran, you'll have
First is the destroyer.
The first what?
Named.
Which did I name first, Mr. Adams?
Sheffield.
The Sheffield is a destroyer.
Yes.
And the Zulu is a cruiser.
Yes.
That's wrong. I'm sorry. It's just the other way around. The Sheffield is the cruiser which made the first contact with the Bismarck during the chase, and the Zulu is one of the 3 destroyers, of which the other 2 were Cossack and Maori. I'm afraid that loses us $25 and a set of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Thank you. Now, the next one from Mrs. J. William Taylor of Birmingham, Alabama, is a 2 out of 3 question. It's a rather simple musical question, ladies and gentlemen. The pianist is going to play 3 well-known songs. The lyrics, in each case, were written by distinguished poets. Can you name the poet responsible for the words? Let's have the first. Mr. Kieran's hand was up at once. Mr. Adams' hand, thank you. Mr. Kieran, will you start us off?
That's Sweet and Low
Yes.
by Tennyson.
That's quite right. You know who wrote the music?
No, I don't.
The music, which is very lovely, too, is written by someone who never gets any credit. A gentleman by the name of Barnby. B-A-R-N-B-Y. Now, let's have the second. Oh, we have several hands. Mr. Struther?
Thomas Moore.
Who wrote... what's the song?
The Bay of Dublin. Last Rose of Summer.
Last Rose of Summer by Thomas Moore. That's right. And who wrote the music? Mr.
Thomas
Struther?
Moore.
No, he did not. I beg pardon?
Balfe.
No, Balfe did not write it. Mr. Skinner?
It's from an opera, isn't it?
No, that's the other one.
That's Bohemian Girl.
Well, it's a fellow named Trad, T-R-A-D, period, Mr. Adams, otherwise known as traditional. We don't know. We don't know who wrote the music. Let's have the third and last. That's a tough one. Of the 3, I think that's the toughest. I have one hand only. Mr. Kieran.
That's Stars of the Summer Night, written by, I believe, Henry W. Longfellow.
Absolutely right, Mr. Kieran. I don't think many of us would have known that. Very good. Now, so far, Lucky Strike has paid out only $25 and 1 set of the Encyclopedia Britannica.
Thanks to my cruiser.
Thanks to your cruiser. And now Mr. Cross points out that whether you know it or not, you smokers are really in the driver's seat at tobacco auctions.
That's right, Mr. Fadiman. The tobacco buyers at those auctions are there to buy tobacco to suit you smokers. Because you want a milder, lighter smoke today, the lighter, milder tobaccos are bid up and up so that they cost more. That's why it's important for you to know that at market after market, the American Tobacco Company pays higher prices to get the finer, lighter, naturally milder leaf. For example, at Richmond, Kentucky last season, American paid 27% more per pound for the tobacco it bought for its cigarettes and other tobacco products. Yes, 27% above the average market price paid for all the various types and grades of tobacco sold there. And the best we bought will go to Lucky's. So next time you step up to that cigarette counter, remember we pay the price to get the kind of tobacco you like best. Mr. Fadiman, isn't that what's called tailoring to taste?
Yes, Mr. Cross, and for your part, you tailored the time nicely. Just 53 seconds. We'll go on with the second half of the program with a question coming from Mrs. Milton Gottlieb of Savannah, Georgia. Get 2 out of 3 if you can on this one. This is about famous literary ladies. Which lady caused a change in climate? Mr. Kieran?
The daughter of Ceres.
Yes, what was her name, Mr. Kieran?
Proserpina.
Very good, Mr. Adams.
Persephone.
Yes, either one. And what's the story, Mr. Kieran?
She was captured by Pluto and carried down into the ground, and her mother asked for her rescue from Jupiter, and she was permitted to come up in the spring, and then she goes back underground with her husband in the fall, and that's winter.
That's right, in the fall and winter. That gives 6 months to either party, which is fair enough. Better than most husbands make out. The next question is this. What lady in literature brought about a naval program? Miss Skinner?
Wouldn't you say Helen of Troy?
Yes, I would, because it's on the card. That's right. And how would you prove your answer?
Well, she brought about the sailing of the Greek fleet to rescue her, bring her back from Troy, and also...
Yes, and what's the famous line that tells
She launched 1,000 ships.
That's right, thank you. Who wrote
some ships?
Poe.
Who wrote the line?
Marlowe.
Marlowe, that's quite right. One of Marlowe's mighty lines, Mr. Adams. How about this one?
Helen, my beauty.
What lady caused an entire college student body to commit suicide? Miss Skinner.
Isn't that Zuleika Dobson?
Yes, it is Zuleika Dobson. And who wrote the...
Max Beerbohm.
Max Beerbohm. Do you remember how the situation occurred?
No, I just remember the mass suicide.
Well, I think they drowned themselves, didn't they, Miss Struther? Do you remember?
I don't know.
I think they all stepped into a
yes,
lake
they fell
pool.
into... they marched into the
Why
river.
did they do so? Why did she drive them to suicide?
I don't know.
Just turn their heads. She was so beautiful, apparently. That gives us 3 out of 3 on this. And the next one from Mrs. Charles E. Cole of Dardanelle, Arkansas, is a question on which I shall ask you to get all correct. What is the difference in the following? Bouillon, consommé, and broth. Bouillon, consommé, and broth. Very simple question. Repulsively simple. Miss Struther, Miss Skinner, do either of you ever step into the kitchen?
No.
Not very often.
No, neither of you care.
I don't think there's any difference.
Oh, yes, there is. It's
You
just
can
that
get
you've been
them
eating
all in a
restaurants. Miss Struther?
Broth has all the bits left in it. Consommé is clear, and bouillon is what Sir James Barrie called one of the darling little sillies that is not quite sure which it is.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. I'm not sure what you mean by your definition of bouillon, but you're right about the other. Consommé is a clear soup. What's it generally made from, Miss Struther?
Consommé?
Yes.
Can be beef or chicken.
Chicken generally, or veal sometimes, can be made from beef. And what's broth made from? What's in it, Mr. Skinner?
Lamb, isn't it, usually?
Well, I suppose you can use almost any kind of, you can have
Lamb broth.
Lamb broth.
Lamb broth is made out of lamb.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, chicken broth.
Very funny that way.
Mr. Adams really knows this stuff. But what has been boiled along with the meat in broth, Mr. Kieran?
Barley.
Barley, rice, other vegetables. And how about bouillon? I don't think we have a very clear idea of bouillon. Mr. Adams, would you step into the breach?
Well, it's made from cubes in our house.
You have a quickly run house. Well, it's clarified and seasoned stock, as I learn, served as a soup and made from beef, unless it's otherwise stated as such as clam or tomato bouillon. Well, I think that's good enough, Miss Struther and other ladies and gentlemen. How about this one
I know
from
I'm
J.M.
awful hungry.
How about J.M. Gowan's question? This comes from this city. Get 3 out of 4. Now, we all listened last Tuesday night to the president's speech. In the course of that speech, he quoted, whether he knew it or not, from a number of people. He quoted from H.G. Wells, from Israel Putnam, from Rudyard Kipling, and finally, from himself. Can you give me in substance 3 of those 4 quotations? Miss Struther.
He quoted Wells' The Shape of Things to Come.
That's quite right, yes. Where in Wells do you find that phrase?
Well, it's the name of the movie.
Yes, and the name of a book.
Name of a book.
Yes, called The Shape of Things to Come. Remember the whole sentence in which the president used the phrase? We do not accept and will not accept...
Hitler's
Yes, this Nazi shape of things to come. Yes, very effectively used quotation. Now, how about the quotation from Israel Putnam? Mr. Kieran.
Well, that's the one about not firing until you see the whites of their eyes.
That's exactly right, Mr. Kieran, and he did use that. Remember, when your enemy comes at you in a tank or a bombing plane, if you hold your fire until you see the whites of his eyes, you will never know what hit you. Israel Putnam is credited with that, and also another revolutionary
General Warren,
hero.
I believe.
I think it's Colonel Prescott, Mr. Kieran, though I may be wrong.
Dispute all around about
Yes, and we're not going to settle it tonight. Now, how about the quotation from Rudyard Kipling? Very famous one. I know that Mr. Kieran knows the quotation. Miss Struther?
Did he say east is east and west is west, and this time the two are going to meet, or something?
No, Kipling said that, and then the thing dropped. Well, Mr. Roosevelt didn't say that.
Wasn't there something from the recessional?
Yes, it was. Go right ahead, Miss Skinner.
It was the far-flung battle
That's right, Miss Skinner, yes. Britain still fights gallantly, said Mr. Roosevelt, on a far-flung battle line. And that's, Mr. Kieran, remember the lines, and what are they? From Rudyard Kipling.
Lord of our far-flung battle line, beneath whose awful hand we hold dominion over palm and pine.
Yes, and I'm sure you could go on with the entire poem, Mr. Kieran, if I didn't stop you. That's very good. Thank you. And now, finally, the quotation from the President himself. He quoted himself. One of his best-known sentences. Oh, I think we should all remember that. None of you remembers that?
Toward the end?
No, I think it was toward the middle. The only thing we have to fear
is fear
itself. Thank you, Mr. Adams. That's right. Well, that gives us 3 out of 4, which was all we were required to get, and sends us on to a question from Edward Liebel of Brooklyn. Again, get 3 out of 4. Name the servant of each of these Shakespearean characters. And the first is Olivia. Olivia's servant. Mr. Kieran?
Malvolio.
Yes. In what play do you find it?
Twelfth Night.
Yes, there's another servant to Olivia also. Miss Skinner?
Well, she had 2 others, Toby Belch and Andrew Aguchi, weren't they?
Well, I don't think that Andrew Aguchi did very much work.
Maria?
Maria, yes, the sharp-tongued Maria. How about the servant of Antipholus? Mr. Kieran? Dromio. In what play would you find it?
The Boys from Syracuse.
Well, that's the modern...
Comedy of Errors.
Yes, that's the more profitable version, the Comedy of Errors. Shylock. Servant to Shylock named, we have one hand. Mr. Kieran?
Lancelot Gobbo.
Lancelot Gobbo, yes, in Merchant of Venice. And finally, servant to Desdemona. Miss Skinner?
Amelia,
yes, in Othello. Well, that gives us 4 out of 4. The Shakespearean scholars are doing very well this evening. How about this one? Shall we shift to art? Get all on this if you can. Grant Morton of Richmond, Virginia sends this one in. Name a famous painter who lived during the 17th century and who frequently painted subjects who were, in the following cases, fat, thin, and short. Who painted fat subjects? Miss Struther.
Rubens
painted fat subjects, and why did he do so?
He liked them that way.
That's all. He just liked them that way. Yes. And who painted thin subjects? So we have 2 hands. Mr. Kieran.
I'd say El Greco.
El Greco. Any particular reason for his liking thin subjects?
No, that was his style of painting.
Yes, that's true. Miss Struther?
It's sometimes said that he had some defect in his eyesight which made him see everybody very thin.
Yes, distorted. And there's another reason, perhaps. He tended to very melodramatic paintings, people in agonized positions. And fat people in agonized positions aren't as effective as thin people in agonized positions. How about a famous painter who painted subjects who were short? Miss Skinner.
Velasquez.
Yes, when...
painted dwarves.
Dwarves and children, too.
Children, yeah.
I suppose others painted children, but he was particularly famous for his dwarfs. That's quite right. You ladies and gentlemen are much too bright for me this evening. How about this one from Alice Connors of Minneapolis? Get 3 out of 4. Here's a question about twins. Who were these twins, whether real or fictional? The first pair is Daisy and Demi. Daisy and Demi. They're out of... they're from a writer that all of us know.
Did you say Demi or Denny?
No, Demi, D-E-M-I. Last name Tuss. Demi Tuss. Do you remember Daisy and Demi? They're the children of Brooke in Little Men. Louisa May Alcott's Little Men. I think they appear in Little Women, too.
Yet.
It'll wait for you, Mr. Adams. Here's another set of twins. Brother Charles and Brother Ned. Brother Charles and Brother Ned. To be found where? Oh, we finally got a question that stumps this renowned panel. They're the...
School book?
I beg pardon?
Is that a juvenile book?
No, though you may have read it as a bright child, Mr. Adams. Miss
Are they from
Skinner.
Dickens?
Yes,
the
they are.
Cheeryble Brothers?
Very good, Miss Skinner. That's very good. The Cheeryble Brothers and Dickens, Nicholas Nickleby. That's extremely good. How about Judith and Hamnet? Judith and Hamnet. Well-known set of twins. Pair of twins. either a fact or fiction? Well, they are the son and daughter of William Shakespeare. Do you remember? Shakespeare, in between plays, was responsible for a son and a daughter. And saved time by having twins, or helping his wife to have twins, Judith and Hamlet. I don't know whatever happened to them. Do you know, Mr. Kieran?
No, I don't.
Never heard of them since.
They got into a dispute over property in his will.
And since then have never been heard of. Neither
I
hand
think
nor
they
hide.
sued the estate for non-support.
Very possible. Now, how about the set of twins known as Chang and Eng? C-A-N-G and E-A-N-E-N-G. Chang and Eng, Mr. Kieran.
Siamese twins.
The original Siamese twins, yes. I think that gives us 2 wrong out of 4, sending $25. Courtesy of Lucky Strike and a set of the Britannica to Miss Alice Connors, and sending us on to the next question. Get 2 out of 3 if you can on this one, from Mrs. Margaret Huckel of Des Moines. What cook or baker in literature did the following things? Which one wrapped his pastry in sonnets? Wrapped his pastry in sonnets. Mr. Adams?
That would be Cyrano de Bergerac.
Yes, right on the nose. And what was the name of the cook or baker? Remember, Mr. Kieran?
Ragueneau.
Ragueneau, yes. Ragueneau and Cyrano de Bergerac. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, which cook or baker used butterflies as the main ingredient for his pièce de résistance? Used butterflies. That's a tough one. I know you all know it. You'll be surprised when I tell you. Mr. Adams, are you going to guess at it?
No.
No? Or Mr. Kieran?
Well, is that Midsummer Night's Dream?
No, I don't think so. It's the aged man in the ballad sung by the knight in Through the Looking Glass, who said, I look for butterflies that sleep among the wheat. I make them into mutton pies and sell them in the street. Remember now? You don't have to.
No.
That's 1 wrong. Which cook or baker used a pie for a bird cage? Mr. Adams.
The cook that cooked 4 and 20 blackbirds in same.
That's quite right. Now, how about this one from J.C. Adams of Evanston? Can you identify the play or moving picture in which one of the principal characters was a man 100 years old? A man 100 years old, Miss Struther?
Rip Van Winkle?
No, he wasn't as old as that. You're the only one that might be expected to remember that, Miss Skinner.
Well, my father was in a play called 100 Years Old.
Yes, and the man that he played was 100 years old, too. Play by the Spanish Quintero brothers. A woman 101 years old. Where would you find such a one? You'll find the character in Mesa de la Rocha's play White Oaks. The part was played by Ethel Barrymore. That gives us 2 wrong. How about a man 249 years old? Well, it's in Lost Horizon by James Hilton. Lived from 1681 to 1930, apparently. That gives us 3 wrong out of 3, sending $25 to Mr. Adams, courtesy of Lucky Strike, and a set of the Britannica. And now Mr. Cross wants to indulge in a sort of mass experiment.
It's really a very easy experiment, Mr. Fadiman. I simply want all you cigarette smokers listening to reach down in your pockets, or pocketbooks, and pull out a package of your cigarettes. All right? Now, I just want to ask you these questions. Is that cigarette giving you all the smoking enjoyment you want? Does it always please your taste? Is it thoroughly mild? If you can't honestly answer yes, 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 well, it's high time you tried Lucky's, for you may be really missing something. Remember, the American Tobacco Company pays the price to get the finer, lighter, naturally milder tobaccos. For example, 18% more than the average market price last season at Lexington, Kentucky, 32% more at Lawrenceville, Virginia, and so on at market after market. And the best we buy goes into Lucky's. Surely it's worth your while to discover a milder, better-tasting cigarette. So why not try Lucky's? Make the very next package of cigarettes you buy Lucky Strike.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. This evening, Lucky Strike has paid out $75 in 3 sets of the encyclopedia, and the ladies have won by a score of 20-17 over the gentlemen. Thank you, Miss Skinner, and thank you, Miss Struther, for coming to our party tonight. Next week, the Levant, Kieran, Adams trio will...
the gentlemen for being gentlemen.
Yes, of course. That's the only reason. That old trio will be back at bat next week, and our guest will be Sally Benson, whose most recent book is Junior Miss. Now, remember, for every question we use, whether or not it's answered correctly, the sender gets $10. If the question stumps us, you get $25 more, and in addition, the complete set of the encyclopedia. Send your letters to Information, please, 480 Lexington Avenue, New York City. And now a parting message from Mr. L.A. Speed Riggs, the famous tobacco auctioneer from Goldsboro, North Carolina.
Morgan.
And that chant, ladies and gentlemen, is just another way of saying that if you haven't tried a Lucky lately, you don't know what you're missing. By the way, if you're going visiting this weekend, we suggest you bring your host or hostess a carton of Luckies. It's sure to make a hit. Remember, with independent tobacco experts, with men who know tobacco best, it's Lucky's 2-to-1.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Now here's another episode of Abbott and Costello. Here, Abbott and Costello go back to school for a production of Romeo and Juliet. You may recognize the character of Mr. Kitzel from the Jack Benny Show, as played by Artie Auerbach. He created that character in 1937 and played it on various radio shows for decades, which is interesting. I guess he owned that character, not some network, sponsor, or show. So he was free to do whatever he wanted. If the upper berth, lower berth bit regarding train travel sounds a lot like Who's on First, including the line, I don't even know what I'm talking about, that's because Abbott and Costello did a lot of verbal bits like that. From November 16th, 1944, The Abbott and Costello Show, Lou visits his grade school.
The Abbott and Costello program, brought to you by Camel, the cigarette that's first in the service according to actual sales records. See if your throat and your taste don't make Camel a first with you, too. Find out for yourself. Listen to the great rhythms of Freddie Rich and his orchestra, the swingy singing of Connie Haynes. And that lad whose message loud and clear each Thursday rings into your ear.
All right, Costello, come here. You're all excited.
Like me.
You're all excited. What's the thing you've got there?
Huh?
It looks like a telegram. Where did you get it?
Oh, a fellow in a long green underwear gave it to me.
A fellow in a long green underwear?
Yeah, he was wearing a Western Union suit.
You dummy. That was a messenger boy. And that's a telegram. What does it say?
It don't say nothing, Abbott. I can't see a thing.
Well, you dope. You haven't even opened the envelope.
Oh, do you have to open it? I thought you were supposed to peek through this little window in the front.
Give me that telegram. I'll read it. Hey, look, Costello.
What?
It's from your hometown.
Patterson, New Jersey?
Patterson, New Jersey.
Oh, boy!
Can you imagine? Look, it says, Dear Louis Costello.
Oh, yeah, Abbott. Look at the way they spell Louis.
What do you mean?
L-O-U-S-C. That's my hometown.
Quiet, Costello. This telegram is from your old grade school in Patterson, Public School 15.
Oh, boy. Good old PS 15. My old alma mattress.
No. No, you mean alma mater. A mattress is something you lie on.
I know. I laid around that school for 10 years. Well, what do they want with me, Abbott?
Well, the telegram goes on to say, let's see now. We are proud of you, Mr. Costello, and the whole school will greatly be honored if you would come to Patterson this Saturday night and appear in our annual school play, signed by the principal, J. Soil-Off Wallpaper.
How do you like that, Abbott? Boy, oh boy, I knew my old school would send for me someday.
Sure they would.
I was always the hero of my school. I'll never forget Coach Abel Green.
What do you mean?
And those kids I played with, Michael Varello.
What did they do?
Those were the kids. We had a real team, and I was even the captain of the tug-of-war team.
Wait a minute. What did you do on the tug-of-war team?
I was the second jerk from the end.
Yes, but I can't...
I don't get that.
I don't either. Look, I can't understand why that school would send for you to appear in a play. What do you know about grammar?
About what?
Do you understand grammar?
No, not since she got a new false teeth.
No.
Even Grandpa can't understand her.
No, Costello, I'm talking about dramatic acting. Did you ever do anything dramatic in school?
Oh, did I? I used to get up and I used to excite poetry.
You did?
Get a load of this little gem, which I wrote myself.
Let's hear it.
And roses are red, and violets are purple, sugar is sweet, and so is maple syrup.
Come on,
maple syrup, it rhymes, don't it?
Well, what about it? But maple syrup, what is that?
What is maple syrup?
What is maple syrup?
Maple syrup is the stuff you put on flannel cakes.
Okay, look. No, talk sense now. If you're going to Patterson, New Jersey, we've got to get down to the railroad station right away. Come on.
Okay, come on.
All right now, Costello, let's get our tickets for Patterson. We've got to find a comfortable place to sleep on the train.
Oh, I never have any trouble, Abbott. I got a system. I eat garlic before I get on a train.
What has garlic got to do with finding a place to sleep?
I just breathe in the conductor's face, and he gives me a wide berth.
Oh, be sensible. Well, here's the ticket window. I beg your pardon, sir. We're going to Patterson. Could you tell us how the trains run?
Oh, yes. There's a big black thing that pulls them, and it goes choo-choo and woo-hoo!
This guy's been drinking too much of that Traveler's Aid.
Look. You better let me handle this, Costello.
I think I better because I lost my place.
All right, never mind that. Now, look, in order to say, Lou, come here.
Go ahead. I got it.
All right, look, I'll take care of everything. Don't worry about a thing. In order to save money, I think we'd better get a couple of upper berths.
Oh, but I don't want an upper. I want a lower.
But, Costello, do you realize that if you buy a lower, you'll find it's much higher than an upper?
Oh, sure. I mean, after all, what'd you say?
I said that a lower is higher than an upper.
A lower is higher than an upper?
Why, certainly.
Well, what are they doing? Running the trains upside down?
Of course not. The lower is a more desirable berth. Therefore, if you want to go lower, you'll have to go higher.
If I want to go lower, I'll have to go higher?
Yes.
Why should I go higher when I want to go lower?
Simply because if you want to go lower, you have to go higher. Because the lower is higher than the upper. And the reason the lower is higher than the upper is because the upper is higher up than the lower.
Oh! You mean that the upper is lower than the lower because the lower is higher than the upper?
Now you've got it.
Now I've got it. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Costello, I'm trying to tell you that they sell the upper lower than the lower because when you sleep in an upper, you have to get up to go to bed.
I have to get up to go to bed?
That's right.
Who's paying for my berth?
You are.
And there ain't going to be anybody in it but me?
No.
Then why do I have to get up?
Costello, look, I've already explained it. Unless you go higher for a lower, then you're stuck with an upper. And you'll have to get up when you go to bed. And you'll have to get down when you want to get up.
Abbott.
What?
Let me smell your breath.
Oh!
Hey, friends, would you like to do me a... Well, I was just about to say do me a favor, but actually I should say do yourself a favor. Or maybe do your throat and your taste a flavor. Let them judge for themselves which cigarette best agrees with them. Let them answer the question you have so often asked yourself about which cigarette is best for you. Let your throat try Camel's kind, cool mildness. Let your taste sample that rich, full flavor. Because your T-zone, that's T for taste and T for throat, can tell you more about Camels in one puff than I can in 10 programs.
C-A-M-E-L-S.
Camels, a superb blend of costlier tobaccos. Freddie Rich plays a hit tune of today, but for many of you, it is also a hit of other years. Freddie revives Sweet and Lovely.
are, Costello, in good old Patterson, New Jersey.
Yeah, Abbott. And here's my old school.
Do tell.
PS 15. As I stand here looking at this old building, I think of the happy days I spent here as a boy.
How long did you go to school, Costello?
You mean counting kindergarten?
Yes.
1 year.
Come on, let's find the principal's office and see what time we start rehearsing for the school play tonight.
Hey, what do you mean? What time we start rehearsing? Not we, me. This is my old school, not yours, Abbott.
What do you mean?
I'm going to do this play all by myself. I don't need your help.
Oh, how can you say that, Costello? Haven't I always given you the best of everything? Why, last Sunday when we had a double date, I gave you the best girl. What a slick little number you had.
Slick number is right. I bent her back in my arms and her hair slid off.
All right, look. Just cut that out, Costello. Wait a minute. I think this is the principal's office right here.
No, not that room.
What do you mean?
No, that room is where they have the art class.
What do you mean?
That's where I learned to draw, Abbott.
You did?
I was a wonderful drawer. My kid brother Sebastian is in there now. He's studying to be a drawer, too.
Well, that'll be nice.
Just think of it. The Costello brothers. A pair of drawers.
Look, never mind that. Where is the principal's office?
Oh, I don't quite remember, Abbott. But look. Here's my old first grades room.
First grade room?
Yeah.
Eh? Well, why don't you go in and say hello to your old teacher?
Oh, I don't think Miss Sashwaite would remember me. I wonder if she's as fat as she used to be.
Why, was she very fat?
Fat. Every time she turned around, she used to erase the back blackboard.
Yeah.
I said it!
All right. Well, go ahead. Open the door and see if she remembers you after all these years.
Okay. Boy, will she be surprised to see me. Miss Sashwaite! Miss Sashwaite!
Yes?
Don't you remember me? I'm Lou Costello.
Oh, and where were you all day yesterday?
Yesterday? I haven't been here for 15 years.
If you're absent one more day, you'll have to bring a note from your mother.
Just a minute, Miss Sashwaite. I'm Lou Costello. Don't you remember how 15 years ago I always used to pester you by raising my hand?
Yes?
Well?
You can go now.
Gee, Miss Sashwaite. Gee, she's changed. I remember when she used to keep me after school to spank her erasers.
All right, look. Come on, Costello. Here's the principal's office right over here. And you'd better let me talk to him. He's a very brilliant man.
Go ahead.
How do you do, sir? Are you Professor Wallpaper, the principal?
Yeah. Oh, you can always tell a Harvard man.
Professor, I understand you want Costello to appear in your school play tonight.
Yeah, just a minute. I got the telephone tangled in my yo-yo. Now, if you fellas are looking for the rehearsal of the play, it's right in the next room.
Oh, all right. Come on, Costello.
Oh, I love you, Millicent, my darling.
I love you too, Rodney. Kiss me, my sweet.
Oh. Hey, you two, cut that out.
Shh, wait a minute. Don't stop them, Costello. That's wonderful acting.
They're not acting. That's the janitor and the fourth grade teacher.
Oh, this is ridiculous. Can anybody tell us where they're rehearsing the play, please?
Right in the next room. Just ask for the English teacher. He's in charge.
Thanks.
Oh, I love you, Millicent, my darling.
I love you too, Rodney. Kiss me, my sweet.
Hey, Abbott,
What?
they've been doing that for 15 years.
Why don't they get together?
Well, she won't marry him when he's drunk, and he won't marry her when he's sober.
Yes, teacher, I'm a dandy.
Kitzel, don't tell me that you're teaching in this school, too.
Yeah, could be, yeah. You know, I'm devoting my whole life to teaching the little kiddies how to speak perfectly the King's English. Yes, I went to one of the most famous colleges in England.
Eton?
Yeah, Eton and Brinkham. I had a wonderful time.
I was in London once.
Yeah?
I met a beautiful girl on the street one day.
Piccadilly?
I certainly did.
He certainly did. I don't get it.
Look, Kitzel, I understand you're directing the school play tonight.
Yes, I am, my friend. You know, my whole family was dramatic coaches. My grandfather was a coach. My father was a coach. My uncle was a coach. Oh, I come from a long line of coaches.
And what are you, the caboose?
Well, gentlemen, I'll see you tonight at the play. Now I must get back to my pupils.
Just a minute, Kitzel. Just a minute. Is my kid brother Sebastian in your English class?
Is that little Sebastian your brother? Woo-hoo, is he a bright little chappie? You know, he is speaking the best English from the whole school. Just a second, I'll call him. Sebastian!
Hello, Sebastian. Hello. I just wanted to tell you how proud I am of you. Professor Kitzel just told me that you're the best English pupil in his whole class. Is that true?
Yeah, could be.
Lovely Connie Haynes and a lovely song together.
Laughed at the rain together, sang love's refrain together, and we both pretend it would never end. One day we cried together, cast love aside together. You're gone from me, but in my memory always will be together. You're gone from me, but in my memory will always be
You know, radio sure is a wonderful triumph of modern science, but as yet we haven't found out how to broadcast the flavor of a cigarette over a microphone. Only your own taste can tell you which cigarette you like best, and only your own throat can tell you which cigarette likes you best. So why not give your T-zone, that's T for throat and T for taste, a chance to judge the cigarette it likes best? Give your taste a chance to try the rich, full flavor of Camel's blend of costlier tobaccos. Give your throat the chance to try Camel's kind, cool mildness. Like millions of smokers, you too may find that your cigarette is C-A-M-E-L-S. Camels. Let them tell their own story to your own T-zone today.
And Teachers Club of Patterson, and all you dirty, dear little kiddies. We have a great surprise for you tonight. One of our former pupils, Lou Costello, has consented to present a play for us. Most of you remember Lou Costello. In his school days, he was the head boy along this block. And let us listen to this blockhead.
Costello, the audience is waiting for you. You've just been introduced. Open this door.
Here I am, Uncle Bud.
Sebastian, what are you doing in your brother's makeup and his costume? What is the meaning of this?
Louis has disappeared.
Disappeared?
Mm-hmm. But don't worry, Uncle Bud.
What do you mean?
I'm going out on the stage and I'm going to take his place. And the audience will never know the difference. I put on this big putty nose that I got, and I put on my nose, this big putty nose.
But, Sebastian, you've got the putty down over the end of your nose. How are you going to smell?
All right, unless they turn on the heat.
Look, Sebastian, What are you going to do when you get out on that stage?
Well, I'm going to tell him a story about Romeo and Juliet. And it was written by William Shakespeare, a very great ether.
Ether?
Mm-hmm.
You mean author. Ether puts people asleep.
That's what this story's going to do.
Well, all right, as long as Lou isn't here, I suppose you'll have to do it. Okay, come on, hurry up. The curtain's going up. Come on, there you are.
Oh, okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm about to tell you the story of Romeo and Juliet. Now, I don't want any interruptions from you, Uncle Abbott.
Go ahead, let's
My
hear the
big
story.
brother told me how you interrupt him.
Well, go ahead.
But don't interrupt me.
Tell that story.
Don't give me that.
Go
Don't
ahead,
interrupt me,
go
that's
ahead.
all. I lost my place like my big brother. Now, I'm not kidding. Once upon a time, there was a fella named Romeo.
Romeo? What did this Romeo look like?
I got out of that one.
Well, all right, what did he look like?
Huh?
What did he look like?
Well, he was about... How do I know what he looked like? I never met the guy.
Then why do you tell stories about people you don't even know?
Nobody knows Romeo. He's just a guy in a story. He's an imaginary character.
Oh, you mean he's just a person in fancy?
In fancy? In fancy what?
In fancy nothing.
That's a good way to catch gold. Now, look, Uncle Bud, if you'll just shut up, I'll tell a story.
All right, go ahead. I won't say any more.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Once upon a time, there was a fella named Romeo, and he was his father's only son.
Well, that's right. He was his father's heir.
His what?
His father's heir.
His father didn't have any hair. He was bald-headed.
All right, go ahead.
Now, don't interrupt me.
All right, go ahead.
Now, there's a girl in the story, and her name is Juliet. And her father was giving a big party, you know, to kind of sort of shove her into society.
Oh, you mean she was making her debut?
I don't know if it was a debut or her nightbue. All I know, it was her first party, and a lot of people was invited to see her and stuff. And things.
Well, you see, the folks were coming in to her coming out party.
How can you come in to come out? She was inside already.
Naturally, she had to come in to come out.
What did she want to come out for? She was inside. This wasn't an outdoor affair.
All right.
This was inside.
I know that. You told me that. All right.
Well, if people are going to come in to come out, there's no use of going out to come in.
All right.
Why don't they stay home?
Look, Sebastian, you don't understand.
Why don't you stay home?
Look, you don't understand,
I should
Sebastian.
stay home
Now,
with
listen,
you.
please. You want me to tell your big brother on you?
Anybody got lozenges?
Listen, please. Look, the party brings her out.
The party brings her out.
That's right.
Why should the party bring her out? What did the little girl do?
No.
The party didn't even start, and some guy right away wants to drag her out.
No, you don't understand.
Why don't they leave the little kid alone?
Now, Sebastian.
Maybe she wasn't drinking.
But, listen, Sebastian.
Maybe she had one popsicle.
Now, Sebastian.
Maybe after all, the kid is okay.
All right.
Lost again.
All right, go on with the story. Well, look, wasn't Romeo invited to this party?
Talk longer.
Look, wasn't Romeo invited to this party is what I want to know, wasn't he?
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Sure. No, you see, Juliet's father... Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Juliet's father... I need him.
Now, come on, Sebastian.
Juliet's father didn't like Romeo, so he had to put on a mask, and he borrowed another guy's clothes, and he went away.
Oh, Romeo went in disguise.
Yeah, in this guy's clothes.
I see. All right, I
You see, Uncle Bud, Romeo and Juliet's fathers was enemies, and they was fighting for 15 years.
They didn't like each other.
Yeah.
Which family brought on the feud?
They both brought on the feud, but Romeo wouldn't eat it. He was lovesick. He kept getting thin and pale.
Oh, I see. He looked wan.
Oh, yeah. What did you say?
I said, he looked wan. Don't you know what wan is?
Yeah, 1 is the number before 2.
No.
1, 2, a bottom my shell.
No. 1 means picket. Romeo was picket.
Oh, sure. He was peeking through the keyhole at Juliet.
Now, Sebastian.
Well, if I was there, I'd have peeked at her myself.
Sebastian, will you please go on with the play?
Well, anyway, every night Juliet used to sit on the balcony.
Why did she sit in the balcony?
Because she couldn't afford a seat in the orchestra.
Sure. All right.
And she liked to sit in the balcony.
All right, now, don't argue.
Up there she could smoke.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Put her feet on the rail.
Yes, go on, go ahead.
So far, so good.
Go ahead.
One night,
I hope I can hold out.
All
One
right.
night, Juliet dropped her handkerchief, and Romeo picked it up and handed it to her.
And what did Juliet do when Romeo handed her the handkerchief?
As she'd done like anybody else.
What? Just what?
Well, you know what I
Wait,
mean.
do you know the story, don't you?
Oh, yes, she...
Well, what did Juliet do when Romeo handed her the handkerchief?
You know, like they always...
What did she do?
She wiped her nose!
All right, now.
Gee, did you have to make me say that?
Well, all right, never mind.
I mean, it's your line.
All right,
Go ahead.
look, Sebastian, as I remember the story, Romeo had a rival, and they fought a duel with lances. Now, what I can't understand is why did the other fellow kick Romeo when Romeo dropped his lance?
Because he caught Romeo with his lance down.
Look, that's enough, Sebastian. Stop the play. Stop it. I say, ladies and gentlemen, the play is over. Bring down the curtain.
Hey, what's the idea of stopping the play, Uncle Bud?
Sebastian, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Not only have you disgraced your brother Lou, but you stand there and make a monkey out of a great masterpiece. You ridicule Romeo and Juliet, the greatest love story of all time, and you deliberately insult the name of William Shakespeare. Why do you do these wicked things?
Oh, I'm a bad boy!
Yeah, I'll say you're a bad boy.
Oh, I'm the kind of kid my mother won't let me associate with.
You certainly are. Now, come here. Now, where is your brother Lou?
I think he might be in the 4th grade classroom, Uncle Bud.
What makes you think that?
Because I locked him in there before the show.
Sebastian, unlock that door and let your brother out. He's probably in there crying his eyes out because he missed the play. Go on, open that door.
Okay, Uncle Bud.
Go ahead.
I love you, Millicent, my darling.
I love you too, Costello. Kiss me, my sweet.
Costello, what are you doing making love with a 4th grade teacher? You know she's the janitor's girl.
You're telling me, Abbott, and I'm the new janitor.
But you missed the whole play.
Oh, don't worry, Abbott. Millicent and I are going to put on another play tomorrow night.
Another play?
Yeah, and I'm calling it The Girl Who Eloped with the New Janitor or Gone with the Window Cleaner.
I love you, Costello, my sweet.
I love you too, Millicent, my sweet. Oh, he's a bad boy!
Abbott and Costello will be back in a moment.
Thanks to the Yanks of the Week. Tonight we salute Technical Sergeant George James H. Logan of Luling, Texas, who is one of only 2 men in this war to receive both the Congressional Medal of Honor and the Distinguished Service Cross. In your honor, Sergeant James M. Logan, the makers of Camels are sending to our fighters overseas 400,000 Camel cigarettes.
Each of the 3 Camel radio shows honors a Yank of the Week by sending free 400,000 Camel cigarettes overseas. A total of more than 1 million Camels sent free each week. In this country, the Camel caravans traveling from camp to camp have thanked audiences of more than 4 million Yanks with free shows and free Camels. Camel broadcasts go out to the United States 3 times a week, are rebroadcast to our men overseas and to South America. Listen tomorrow to Jimmy Durante and Gary Moore. Monday to Bob Hawke in Thanks to the Yanks. And next Thursday to Abbott and Costello. And before we hear from the boys, I'd like to say the Merchant Marine needs more men to man the supply lines to victory. And to eligible men, it offers not only a well-paid and worthy present, but a splendid future. In 6 months' time now, you can make the progress it would have taken you 3 years to make before Pearl Harbor. Get all the facts. Go to any United States Employment Service office or wire collect to the United States Merchant Marine, Washington, D.C. And now, here are Bud and Lou Costello with a final word.
Thanks, Ken. But it's getting a little late, so all we'll have time to say is just good night, folks.
And good night to everybody.
Good night,
please buy bonds.
Buy bonds. Good night, folks.
To everybody in Patterson, New Jersey.
Good night, neighbors. Good night, neighbors.
Be sure to tune in next week for another great Abbott and Costello show. And remember, try Camels on your throat and your taste. See for yourself how Camel's mildness, coolness, and flavor click with you.
If you are a hermit living in some lonely cave, don't listen to this, because you're one of the few men in the world who can pack his pipe with any old tobacco he pleases and get away with it. But if you want your pipe to make a hit with people around you as well as yourself, then load up with Prince Albert. That wonderful fragrance, that aged-in-the-wood aroma, gives your pipe real pipe appeal to other folks as well as yourself. Besides that fragrance, Prince Albert has a rich, full-bodied yet mild flavor. It's no-bite treated for tongue gentleness. It's crimp-cut to pack, draw, and burn perfectly. And what a bargain. Just about 50 pipefuls in one regular 2-ounce package. More pipes smoke Prince Albert than any other tobacco in the world.
The Abbott and Costello Show for Camel Cigarettes will be back at this very same time next week. Don't miss it. This is Ken Niles in Hollywood, wishing you a pleasant good night.
This is the National Broadcasting Company.